Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajaka Ashtottara Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayo Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajaka Ashtottara Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 27th day of August 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 8 entitled Attaining the Supreme, text 4. Is it not? 4. Okay, that is on page 348 as I mentioned. Haribhutam Charo Bhava Purushash Charidaivatam Adiyagyo Aham Evatra Dehe Dehabhatang Vara Adibhutang Sharo Bhava Purushas Charidaivatam Adiyagyo Aham Evatra Dehe Dehabhatam Vara Adibhutang Sharo Bhava Purushashchari Daivatam Adiyagyoham Evatra Dehe Deha Bhatambara Adibhutang Sharo Bhava Purushashchari Daivatam Adiyagyoham Evatra Dehe Deha Bhatambara. Go ahead. Adibhutang Sharo Bhava Purushashchari Daivatam Adiyagyoham Evatra Dehe Deha Bhatambara. Did you want to try? Adibhutam Sharo Bhava Purushashchari Daivatam Adiyagyoham Evatra Dehe Deha Bhatambara. Bhakta Chad.
Adibhutam Charo Bhava
Adibhutam Charo Bhava
Purushashchari Daivatam
Purushashchari Daivatam
Adiyagyoham Evatra
Adiyagyoham Evatra
Dehe Deha Pratambara.
Dehe Deha Bhatambara. Sounds like you've been practicing your shlokas.
A little bit.
You've improved. Very nice.
We have a couple others on also.
Okay. Anyone else want to chant?
Adibhutam Sharo Bhava
Adibhutang Sharo Bhava
Purushashchari Daivatam
Purushashchari Daivatam
Adiyagyoham Evatra
Adiyagyoham Evatra
Dehe Deha Bhatambara.
Dehe Deha Bhatambara. Anyone else? Okay. All right, I'll read the word by words myself. You will read along. Adibhutam, the physical manifestation. Charaha, constantly changing. Bhavaha, nature. Purushaha, the universal form, including all the demigods, like the sun and the moon. Cha, and Adidaivatam, called Adidaiva. Adiyagya, the super soul. Aham, I, Krishna. Eva, certainly, atra, in this. Dehe, body. Deha Bhatam, of the embodied Vara, or best. Translation. O best of the embodied beings, the physical nature, which is constantly changing, is called Adhibhuta, the material manifestation. The universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods, like those of the sun and the moon, is called Adidaiva. And I, the Supreme Lord, represented as the Supersoul in the heart of every embodied being, am called Adiyagya, the Lord of Sacrifice. Purport. The physical nature is constantly changing. Material bodies generally pass through 6 stages. They are born, they grow, they remain for some time, duration. They produce some byproducts, they dwindle, and then they vanish. This physical nature is called Adhibhuta. It is created at a certain point and will be annihilated at a certain point. The conception of the universal form of the Supreme Lord, which includes all the demigods and their different planets, is called Adidaivata. And present in the body, along with the individual soul, is the Supersoul, a plenary representation of Lord Krishna. The Supersoul is called the Paramatma, or Adiyagya, and is situated in the heart. The word Eva is particularly important in the context of this verse, because by this word, the Lord stresses that the Paramatma is not different from him. The Supersoul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, seated beside the individual soul, is the witness of the individual soul's activities and is the source of the soul's various types of consciousness. The Supersoul gives the individual soul an opportunity to act freely and witnesses his activities. The functions of all these different manifestations of the Supreme Lord automatically become clarified for the pure Krishna conscious devotee engaged in transcendental service to the Lord. The gigantic universal form of the Lord, called Adidaivata, is contemplated by the neophyte who cannot approach the Supreme Lord in his manifestation as the Supersoul. The neophyte is advised to contemplate the universal form of Virat Purusha, whose legs are considered the lower planets, whose eyes are considered the sun and moon, and whose head is considered the upper planetary system. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. Okay, let's close that door in the interest of a little better silence. I think this one's open, right? Okay, we get air there. So, Krishna is continuing to answer the questions of Arjuna that he posed at the beginning of the chapter. Which questions were stimulated by what Krishna said at the end of the previous chapter. Adidaiva, Adiatma, and Adiyagya. So in the third verse here, Krishna said, what is Brahma? You see, the Supreme Personality said the indestructible transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the self. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma, or fruit of activities. And now he's describing what Adibhuta is. Adibhuta is the ever-changing material world. And the Purusha is the universal form. And Adidaiva, it's called Adidaiva, the universal form. And Adiyagya, this is the super soul. He's the Lord of the sacrifice, Lord of sacrifice. In fact, the word Yagya itself can also mean Vishnu. Yagya vai Vishnu. I think there's a little phrase like that. So all of this is going to lead to the 5th, 6th, and 7th verses, which kind of give us a little glimpse into the essence of the Bhagavad Gita's teachings, because it's all about how you cultivate the consciousness while we have free will and we can make decisions, so that at the time of death we can remember Krishna. Antakali. Antakali is the end time. That'll be coming up in the next verse. And that's really, there's this very nice verse, Smarta Vyaksatatam Vishnu, Vismarta Vyo Najatuchit, Sava Vidin Shadaksur, Etayoreva Kinkara. Are you familiar with that one? Maybe not. Okay, Smarta Vyak means to remember or remembrance. Satatam, always, Vishnu. Vishnu. And Prabhupada, when he gives the translation of this verse, he says, and Krishna is the original Vishnu form. So it means Krishna. Smarta Vyaksatatam Vishnu, Vismarta Vyo Najatuchit, and never to forget him. There's two things. Now we're in material life, we're in a long period of forgetfulness of Krishna, you see. But the vast number of living entities are always remembering Krishna. They don't forget, they're in the spiritual world. So we want to return to that state, that natural state of always remembering Krishna. And whatever we do, whether it's chanting Hare Krishna, taking prasadam, associated with devotees, chanting in these festivals like Rath Yatra, the underlying purpose of it all is to increase the depth of our remembrance of Krishna. Because we're all being in an environment of the temple, you can't help but think of Krishna, occasionally, at least, right? Now I think we're all thinking of Krishna with his book right here, so this is very good. But we know how distracting the world can be, and how our own mind has so many ideas of its own, right? I like to say, forgive me for this is my own little quip. The mind has a mind of its own. And so the first, in any yoga system, the first principle is to get control of the mind, right? And with the control of the mind, you get control of the senses like that. So that constant remembrance. Now I'll skip to one very nice verse that I read when I read this wonderful biography of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur called Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava. And there's a section in there on the verses that he would often quote. It's interesting. And one of the ones is right near the end of the 12th canto, which is the end of the Bhagavatam. There's 8 verses that all about the glories of hearing and chanting. It's all about hearing and chanting. And indeed, there are 3 verses in there that he quotes from the first canto in the 5th chapter, that were often quoted there. Nayad vichas chitta padang hare yasho jagat pavitram pragunita karachit. Tadvang, there's a few little differences. Tadvangshatirtam natohangsa sevitam yatrachatas tatta hisadavo amala. So what he's saying there is that even though the mundane literature may be very nicely composed, very attractive on the material level, if it doesn't glorify Lord Krishna, then the wise souls reject it as a place of pilgrimage for crows. Our old friend Ashram Maharaj, who I think must be having health problems because we haven't seen him in a while. Every time he comes, he asks this devotees to a question in the class. So what is all this other literature that doesn't deal with Krishna, you see? Even the other Vedic literature that Vyasadeva wrote. Remember, he was dissatisfied at the beginning there. He had written the Mahabharata, which has the Bhagavad Gita, of course. He wrote all the Vedas, the four Vedas, the Upanishads, the Karmakanda section, the Puranas, everything. But he wasn't satisfied. He didn't know exactly why. So Narada Muni came, and together he finally figured out, because he hadn't written a book wholly and solely dealing with Krishna, Krishna's devotional service, and Krishna's devotees. And therefore he was feeling unsatisfied. So these other books, as Ashram Maharaj never tires of reminding us, is just like a pilgrimage for crows. What's that? A garbage heap. You know, I mean, in the ultimate sense. I mean, how can you say the Bhagavad Gita? We're reading Bhagavad Gita. It's not a garbage heap. It's the essence of the Mahabharata, you know. But there are so many passages. I'll give you a little, one of my adventures from editing. At a certain point in time, after we finished the Bhagavatam in Miami in 1989, when I say we, I mean myself, Gopi Puranadana Babu and Ridhidhana Das Goswami. So we finished, the 12th canto, everything's finished. Now what to do? So there was this thing, well, maybe we should publish a Mahabharata. And so Ridhidhana Maharaj, he translated the Adi Parva, which has 60, 70 chapters. They're pretty small, but it's pretty substantial. So I was going through, I'm the editor, so I'm going through editing, and I come upon a chapter, some of the chapters are pretty small, and it's describing Nagaloka, which is a planet of snakes, right? Whereby Vasuki, I think, is the main snake. Okay, I'm editing this, and there's nothing about Krishna Leela, nothing about, Krishna in Vrindavan. It's just, and then I come to many, many verses just enumerating the names of those snakes. And I'm thinking, really? This is what I'm spending my time on? So, we don't need to read the whole Mahabharata. It's nice, what's really good is that Krishna Dharma and others, they made a nice little summary of the plot, But there's so much stuff like that in the Mahabharata, a lot of things that, we don't really need to read it. Because time is tight. So anyway, back to the 12th canto. So these verses, there are 8 of them, and so I dubbed it the Krishna Katashtaka. And that verse about the pilgrimage of crows is there. Also, Tadbhag Vasargo Janataga Viplava, which is, you heard that one before? No, okay. This is a verse Prabhupada chose to put into his preface to the book. A preface to the Bhagavatam, the first canto. A preface means describing how the book came to be. It's not really the introduction. So this verse, Tad Bhagava Sargo Jana, is in contrast to the previous verse. So it says those words, those literature, that every verse may be miscomposed, as opposed to the other book, which is every verse is very artistic, but it doesn't deal with Krishna. The sages reject it as garbage. But a book that may be not so nicely composed, but is all about Krishna, Krishna's service, and Krishna's devotees, and is meant to bring about a revolution in the misdirected civilization. Janataga Viplavo, Yasman Mati, Prati Shlokam Abhadyavati. Every shloka has a mistake in it. But still, Janataga Viplavo, Yasman Mati Shlokam Abhadyavati. Namanyanantasya Yashankitaniyat. But it describes the name, qualities, pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Shrinvanti Gayanti Gunanti Sarava. The sadhus, Devotees, they hear it, they chant it, they glorify it, you see. So because they're swans, they're the swan-like devotees. They don't go where the crows are. So anyway, I'll just give you the last verse of this glorification of hearing and chanting is all about avismriti. That verse says, what is it? Now I forget. Smartavyota Vishnu Vismartavyana about avismriti, never forgetting Krishna. Now, this is, we had, when I worked on that translation, you know, this is near the end of the whole book, I remember we just had remembrance of Krishna, avismriti. But avismriti is more than just remembrance. It means never forgetting. It means constant remembrance, unbroken remembrance. That is the preliminary goal of everything we're supposed to do. So that we're ready for death at any moment. It may come at any moment. You know, there could be a big tsunami coming here. Or maybe we'll get 10 minutes, you know, notice or something. But can we really run up to that park on the hill at that time? So that's this. During the pandemic, you know, there was no getting away from it. People became much more conscious of the threat of death unexpectedly, you know. And it was a whole thing, you know. Everyone was going around with the masks, and then, I mean, I didn't hesitate to get as many boosters and as many vaccinations as I could. I had no doubt that it would help. And we had one devotee here, I won't mention his name, who was an anti-vaxxer. He died of COVID. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So this verse goes like this: the value of constant remembrance of Krishna, which is, we're going to come on the verses that talk about that in a minute. Avismriti Krishna padada vindayo chinotya badhrani chashantanoti sattvasya shuddhim padamatma bhaktim jnanam cha vijnana viraga yuktam. So this is the result. So avismriti Krishna padada, unbroken remembrance of Krishna's lotus feet. Krishna. Chinotya badhrani, destroys everything inauspicious in your life. Chinotya badhrani chashantanoti, and expands all this sham. Sham means everything good fortune, and, you know, everything. Like the Shankara, he who brings good fortune. Shamtanoti. Sattvasya shuddhim, it purifies one's consciousness, one's existence. Padamatma bhaktim, and nourishes devotion to the Supreme Soul, Krishna, which is characterized by jnana and vijnana, jnanam to vijnana viraga yuktam, accompanied by detachment from everything else. So this is the value of hearing and chanting, which the whole movement is based on. This Sankirtan, hearing and chanting, you know, and hearing and chanting our own japa, and hearing and chanting the Bhagavad Gita and Prabhupada's purports. So that's what this is all about. So okay, we know adibhutam. We want to get out of this adibhutam, this ever-changing nature. You see, and understand the Supreme Person. The Adiyagya, the Supreme, you know, Krishna is the Adiyagya. Dehe Deha Pradambara, and understand that we are bearing the burden of a material body. That's what Deha Pradam means. So these are all important points of philosophy. Okay, so he's answering the question, what is Adibhuta, what is Adidaiva, what is Adiyagya? And now he's going to, in the next 3 verses, he's going to give like the essence of the whole Bhagavad Gita. Antakale chamameva smaran mukva kalevaram yapriyati samadbhavam yati nastyatra sangshayaha. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Now in these next 3 purports, Prabhupada is going to emphasize the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. You'll see. Purport. In this verse, the importance of Krishna consciousness is stressed. Anyone who quits his body in Krishna consciousness is at once transferred to the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. The Lord is the purest of the pure. Therefore, anyone who is constantly Krishna conscious is also the purest of the pure. The word smaran, remembering, is important. Remembrance of Krishna is not possible for the impure soul who has not practiced Krishna consciousness in devotional service. Therefore, one should practice Krishna consciousness from the very beginning of life. If one wants to achieve success at the end of his life, the process of remembering Krishna is essential. Therefore, one should constantly, incessantly chant the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Lord Chaitanya has advised that one be as tolerant as a tree, taror api sahishnuna. There may be so many impediments for a person who is chanting Hare Krishna. Nonetheless, tolerating all these impediments, one should continue to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, so that at the end of one's life, one can have the full benefit of Krishna consciousness. And as I was explaining last night to the Taco Tuesday crowd, I happened to be present when, a fair number of devotees, maybe 8 or 10, left their bodies. And the preference always is, you're usually in a hospital bed or some bed in your apartment or something, that devotees will be around you chanting. At the very least, you'll have a kirtan playing. I remember when Kamala Sundari, I don't know if you knew her, she was famous here, Kamala Sundari. She passed away maybe a year ago now. And Sanjay and his brothers, they asked me to come and chant along with Pavamana and Yamunapati. We all went down there to their place. And she was, in bed. They had a little speaker, playing Prabhupada's kirtan. So they turned it, and we had a kirtan there. I remember, I think it was Pavamana was probably playing the harmonium, and Yamuna was beating drum, and I was playing the kartals, and he was chanting. And she was there, and she was having trouble breathing, But at the chanting, she was trying to chant with us. It was really very moving. All of her kids and everything, she had, family there, right next to her. And she was, she was trying to mouth the words. It was really amazing to see. And what was really amazing that, she had so many symptoms of I don't know what her disease was, but she was in pretty, dire shape. And, low blood pressure, this and that. They were always, and so, but the kirtan, all of her vital signs improved by the kirtan. She didn't jump out in bed and started dancing or anything, but it obviously was a great lift for her, and we chanted at least for half an hour, if not more. And the interesting thing is that when we were finished, we're getting ready to go, Bhajanarayan Maharaj arrived. And he stayed there, we left and he stayed and everything. I don't know, I think she may have left at that point. During his stay. But that was one. I remember this devotee named Radhanath Prabhu. It wasn't Radhanath Swami, obviously. I tell this story. He was an amazing devotee. He was in a wheelchair for years. I remember when I first saw him in Miami, there was the early 80s. And he passed away, 5-6 years ago. So he was going out, and he had this progressive disease where it was a muscular thing, and he was in a wheelchair, but he would insist on being taken out by his aide to a parking lot and distributing books. He was distributing books even up to practically the last moment. And he called me. He had a health crisis. He was in the hospital. Rajendranandan was spending hours with him every day. I would visit and spend. I didn't have that time, And so then it turned out that this little health crisis he had was not fatal. He could survive it. But they told him, but you'll have to be plugged in most of the time to this breathing machine, and everything. So in other words, he had no more mobility. He couldn't go out to the party. So he said, forget that. He wasn't interested. And so he called me up and said, I'm going to have him pull the plug, so to speak, on Friday. Can you make it? I said, no, I'm leaving for Alatra Friday morning. Okay, we'll do it Thursday then, so we all came. And a lot of devotees came to the hospital room, and were chanting. And you could see the vital signs, at a certain point it was flat and, he had departed. But he departed with the kirtan, the Hare Krishna mantra, the most auspicious thing. Prabhupada did the same thing. He had the whole room full of devotees chanting for hours, and he departed. So that's the help. And of course, if you are chanting yourself and you're in good consciousness, then from inside you're very receptive to the name. You're hanging on it. It's like nectar from heaven, And so it's and it produces. There was this wonderful lady, Yamunapati's daughter. She passed. She was only 35. She got cancer. She married one of our former temple presidents here, Bhishma Dev. And they had set up in Alachua, and he had his job, on the computer job. And so I would visit them whenever I visit. I used to visit twice a year. And we had lunch and everything, But somehow she came down with cancer. And so Yamuna went to see her. He stayed there, and Parashakti, who's the mother, she went and visited and came back. And so I would call up sometimes, and I would do some verses, and everything for a while. But I heard that her spiritual master, Indradyumna Swami, was calling every day from Vrindavan and spending a long time with her and encouraging her and giving her Krishna. So Yamuna described when we had the memorial here after she passed, how she was so peaceful at the time, Because I saw so many people die. I worked in a hospital for a whole year as an oxygen guy, to run up and give the oxygen and everything. And people are in tremendous distress at that time. They don't know what's going to happen. They saw the Amadutas, or there's terminal restlessness, And so it's anything but the way she describes. She was so much at peace. It was like you could, felt that the Vaikuntha airplane had come and simply she got into it. In other words, a very auspicious departure. So that's what Krishna is talking about now. If you can remember Krishna at the time of death, and Prabhupada is giving the means here. Every purport he talks about, he mentions Hare Krishna. So now, so that's the principle of going back to God. Whoever remembers me alone at once attains my nature. There's no doubt. So now the general principle, text 6. Yang mapi smaran bhavam Chajat jante kalevaram tam tame vaiti kunteya sadatad bhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. Purport. The process of changing one's nature at the critical moment of death is here explained. A person who at the end of his life quits his body thinking of Krishna attains the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. But it is not true that a person who thinks of something other than Krishna attains the same transcendental state. That is a point we should note very carefully. How one can die in the proper state of mind? How can one die in the proper state of mind? Maharaj Pārtha, although a great personality, thought of a deer at the end of his life, and so in his next life he was transferred into the body of a deer. Although as a deer he remembered his past activities, he had to accept that animal body. Of course, one's thoughts during the course of one's life accumulate to influence one's thoughts at the moment of death. So this life creates one's next life. If in one's present life one lives in the mode of goodness and always thinks of Krishna, it is possible for one to remember Krishna at the end of one's life. That will help one be transferred to the transcendental nature of Krishna. If one is transcendentally absorbed in Krishna's service, then his next body will be transcendental, spiritual, not material. Therefore, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is the best process for successfully changing one's state of being at the end of one's life. Now, I can't resist sharing with you one of the verses from the Kevalashtaka. Kevalashtaka is 8 verses describing the glories of the holy name, written by an associate of Bhaktivinoda Thakur named Nilakanta Goswami. So one of those verses goes like this: Nikshvase nahi vishvaso kada arudho bhavishyati kirtane mata bhavyad hare nama eva kevalam. Remember that our final breath may come at any time, no matter if we're old and sick or in our youthful prime. So young and old alike should chant the name incessantly. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. That's such an important instruction. So that's what Krishna is giving us here. Whatever you think of. So then, here's one verse that is a prayer of Brahma, I think, during his prayers for creative energy, or maybe the description of the kingdom of God, I think. Yanna bhajantaka badho vachananavada chinbandiye nivishaya kukatamatigni yastu shruta hatabagaya nibarata saras tang chapancha sadaneshu tamaksu hanta. Hanta means alas, So this is a very uncompromising verse. Who goes to Vaikuntha, who doesn't go to Vaikuntha? You see? So this is the one who doesn't go to Vaikuntha. Yang na vajanti agabador vachananubhada. They don't go, who are always hearing words that have nothing to do with Krishna. Vachana means the creation of words. Vachananubhada chinbandi ye anya vishaya. The subject matters other than Krishna. Which is the effect is called kukata. We like Krishna kata, very auspicious. Ku means bad, kukata, which matigni, destroys your intelligence. Matigni yastu shuta hatabagaya. Hearing such words, it takes away all your good fortune. And atasadas, and destroys your interest in the ultimate goal of life. Atasadas. And then tang, those topics that you've been reading and listening to all your life, chapanta shadanesha, throws you down into the lower species of life, ashadanesha, where there's no shelter, in darkness, tamaksu, hanta, alas. Very serious. On the other hand, this is from a previous chapter, but it has two in it, means on the other hand. This verse I memorized when I first read it 50 years ago. Ye tud vadiya chadanam buddhakosha gandham jigrantikana vivaraishu divatanitam bhaktya guhita chadanak padayachatesham napaiti nada vidhyamburahatsvapungsam. Those who can smell the fragrance of the lotus feet of Krishna carried through the air by the words of the Vedas, but the words describing Krishna's, you see. So, just like we know that Krishna can perform all the functions of his senses with every one of the senses, right? That's why he can look at the offering and see how much devotion was put into the offering, and he can eat it in that way. So similarly, we also acquire that with transcendental senses, if we advance. So with our transcendental ears, we can hear the beautiful descriptions of Krishna's lotus feet and smell the fragrance of those lotus feet. So that's what he's talking about. So such devotees who can do that, they accept bhakti in their heart. Bhaktya guhita chadanak, to the lotus feet of Krishna. Parayachatesham napaiti nada vidhyamburahatsapungsam. And Krishna is never separated from their hearts. So this is the alternative. By cultivating the hearing and chanting so that we're experiencing Krishna's presence. Just like we know, right, theoretically, but philosophically, that the holy name of Krishna is Krishna himself. It's inconceivable. But it means that through hearing and chanting Krishna's name, serving his name, giving it to others, remembering, we're associating directly with Krishna. And we're being purified, and we're being attracted to Krishna. We're being attracted to everything related to Krishna, just by that purification of heart. So that's the choice we have. Where are we going to direct our attention? To that which increases our remembrance of Krishna and our service to Krishna, or that which may be some flickering sense pleasure, but which takes us away. And therefore, sense gratification is the source of all suffering, because it keeps you bound to this world. The heart, the knots in the heart are tightened to the things of this world. So, therefore, the next verse begins with therefore. So the two verses are giving us that lesson. One who remembers me comes to me. Whatever you think of, when cultivate, that's going to terminate. Therefore, tasmat sarveshu kaleshu tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmarayudyacha mayarpatamano buddhi mame vaishyasya sangshayaha. Therefore, Arjun, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time, carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me, and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. Purport. This instruction to Arjun is very important for all human beings engaged in material activities. The Lord does not say that one should give up his prescribed duties or engagements. One can continue them and at the same time think of Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. This will free one from material contamination and engage the mind and intelligence in Krishna. By chanting Krishna's names, one will be transferred to the supreme planet, Krishna Loka, without a doubt. Now, I'm going to reference a verse because, I've been working on the Bhagavad Gita since 2019, going over the revisions, checking, So we just finished chapter 18, believe it or not, after all this time. But there's one verse that's very well known here. Yes. Got it. All right, maybe it's... Anyway, the meaning of the verse is that one who worships Krishna through his work, in other words, his work is worship, right? But work itself is not worship. Work is worship if the fruits are given to Krishna, and that work helps you remember Krishna. That's the idea. So one who is able to worship Krishna in the course of his duties, activities, then he's sure to come to Krishna. That's the idea behind Varnashram. Seyavaya mayatedya yoga bhakto simesagari rahasyam. No, that's a different verse. But in the second chapter, first canto, it's described that Varnashram is successful when everyone who's performing their duties within Varnashram is at the same time satisfying Krishna by their work. That's the whole idea. And so that's what Prabhupada set up this society to do. There's so many things that need to be done, but it's all for the greater glory of the Lord, whether it's cleaning the temple room or cooking or going out on book distribution or chanting Hare Krishna and Kirtan, on the street. It's all for, and each one of those, if done sincerely, helps us remember Krishna. We're not just cleaning any floor. This is the temple room floor, and there's the deities there, so it'll help you remember Krishna. We're not singing any old songs. We're singing glories of Krishna, Jaya Radha Madhava. There's a million songs. And this is, we're not studying literature of any kind. We're studying Krishna's words. So let's see. Okay, it's 8 o'clock. So those three verses, 5, 6, and 7, are worth 4, 5, 6, and 7. Give like a whole little lesson within the Bhagavad Gita. First he tells you the general principle, antakali, the goal, antakali chamameva smaran mukva kalevanam yakpriyati samadbhavam yatinatrata sankshya. The one who remembers me at the time of death will certainly come to me. And then, warning, yang bhavi smarang bhavam chajatjante kalevanam tamtamevati kondeya sadadod bhava bhavata. Whatever is the most prominent thought in your mind at the time of death, that will determine your future body. So if you cultivate an animalistic propensities of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and you could go down, especially at this age. It's so crazy. Therefore, tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmadayudyacha mayapita manobuddha mame vaishyasya sankshita. Therefore, Arjun, in all circumstances, do your duty and fight. He says yudyacha, so we can fill in on whatever we're doing. We have to work at a job or something or whatever. Remember me and X. You see, and especially if that job that you have naturally helps you remember Krishna. That's the great value of joining the Hare Krishna movement. I'm working on these books. I was just going over the TLC. I revised the TLC back in 2013. And anyway, it's a long story. But I was just going over that. And Prabhupada said the editors are very lucky because they're always meditating on the books, So it's a fact that just doing my natural work, you can become absorbed. So it's good fortune. Okay, so let's see. Text 8, right? Abhyasa yoga yuktena cetasa nanyagamina padamam purusham divyam yati parthanuchintayan. He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Pārtha, is sure to reach me. Purport. In this verse, Lord Krishna stresses the importance of remembering him. One's memory of Krishna is revived by chanting the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna. By this practice of chanting and hearing the sound vibration of the Supreme Lord, one's ear, tongue, and mind are engaged. Thank you for coming, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. This mystic meditation is very easy to practice, and it helps one attain the Supreme Lord. Purusham means enjoyer. Although living entities belong to the marginal energy of the Supreme Lord, they are in material contamination. They think themselves enjoyers, but they are not the Supreme Enjoyer. Here it is clearly stated that the Supreme Enjoyer is the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his different manifestations and plenary expansions as Narayan, Vasudeva, etc. Sureshwar, can you close this door now? It's getting a little cold. Is it okay? You look like you're a little cold. I think we'll be all right. Okay. Okay. By this by chanting and hearing the sound vibration of the Supreme Lord, one's ear, tongue, and mind are engaged. This mystic meditation is very easy to practice, and it helps one attain the Supreme Lord. Purusham means enjoyer. Although living entities belong to the marginal energy of the Supreme Lord, they are in material contamination. They think themselves enjoyers, but they are not the Supreme Enjoyer. Here it is clearly stated that the Supreme Enjoyer is the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his different manifestations and plenary expansions as Narayan, Vasudeva, etc. The devotee can constantly think of the object of worship, the Supreme Lord, in any of his features, Narayan, Krishna, Rama, etc., by chanting Hare Krishna. This practice will purify him, and at the end of his life, due to his constant chanting, he will be transferred to the kingdom of God. Yoga practice is meditation on the Supersoul within. Similarly, by chanting Hare Krishna, one fixes his mind always on the Supreme Lord. The mind is fickle, and therefore it is necessary to engage the mind by force to think of Krishna. One example often given is that of the caterpillar that thinks of becoming a butterfly, and so is transformed into a butterfly in the same life. Similarly, if we constantly think of Krishna, it is certain that at the end of our lives we shall have the same bodily constitution as Krishna. So, just before we share a few poems, the books of Srila Prabhupada, like the Krishna book. Now, it's interesting that Prabhupada stopped work on the Bhagavatam as a whole. He was probably in the third canto, working on the third canto, in 1970, because he realized that the devotees are going out, they're chanting Hare Krishna, you know, but they don't really know much about Krishna activities, you know. So, and the TLC was there, but that's also mostly philosophy. It didn't really have much Leela about Lord Chaitanya. So he stopped and he gave the Krishna book. Now the Krishna book is known as a summary study. It's not as strict a translation as he did in the, you know, in the formal with all the, like we have here. But Nirantara Prabhu, he always he comes regularly here and he always says, this is my favorite book. He's always reading Krishna book. And so I've been reading Krishna book regularly, going through for years. And it's such a wonderful way of thinking of Krishna, these pastimes. And the 10th canto is filled with that. And you really realize the meaning of Krishna's name, all attractive, because everything about him is attractive. His pastimes, how he looks, his sounds, you know. There's one thing we don't think about oftentimes, but in the Goloka Vrindavan, there's no bad smells at all. Nothing. Here, you have, oh my God, are you kidding? You know, that's the nature of the material world. The attractive nature is very fragile, and before something that's attractive becomes repulsive, some food goes rotten, he says, oh, get it out of here, like that. So in the spiritual world, everything is all attractive because it's under Krishna's direct rule, and he's all attractive. So you can't stay there unless you're dedicated to serving him, and the purification comes, as I gave in that verse. By always thinking of Krishna, then your whole sattvasa shuddhim padamatma bhaktim, the purification takes place. And it's so important to realize that we're always in the material in a contaminated state of consciousness. You see, with the modes of nature are affecting us, but it's not natural for the soul. Because we're naturally Krishna conscious, and Krishna is all attractive. So if the devotee is always glorifying Krishna and becomes, as Prabhupada so many times said, a transcendental and pure medium, that he can give Krishna, then you're always in a state of joy, because Krishna is always joyful. We should always remember this sutra from the Vedanta Sutras. Anandamayo bhyasat It's nice and short, easy to remember. Anandamaya means full of ananda. Now, abhyasat means we can tell from his activities, whatever he does, it's always in bliss. You see? Now, we are part and parcel of Krishna. That is also our eternal internal nature. But it's covered over by our consciousness that's absorbed in, matter, the Maya. But that's our nature. And so if we can revive that nature through service to Krishna, beginning with chanting and hearing and remembering, then we'll also feel that bliss, just to be able to sit anywhere, remembering Krishna and be in perfect happiness, because you're serving him by remembrance. Remembrance is also service. That's one of the 9 services. So it's important to remember that. And here Krishna is giving us in this 8th chapter a little of the description of the glories of remembering him and the importance of it. That's the whole point. Smart Tam Vishnu. All right, time for 1 or 2 poems. Nice way to remember Krishna. You see, this is so, it being Maharashtami, I'm going to do go back again to that Ashtaka that I wrote. There's so many nice verses about Radharani that it didn't put into poems. This is, of course, this is at the beginning of the CC. It's a nice verse describing Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikriti Ladani Shakti Rasman Ekatmana Vabhibhupara Deha Vedam Katauta Chaitanyakim Pakadamadana Tadvayam Chaikyamatam Radha Bhava Titisapalitangam Krishna Sarupam. You familiar with this one? Not so much. You like this. Study the very beginning of the CC. It's 14 verses, Mangalacharan, and this is one of them. So Radha is Krishna Pranaya Vikriti, is a transformation of pure love for Krishna, named Ladani Shakti, giver of bliss. Ekatmanav Abhibhuvivara. So they are one, Radha and Krishna are one in the spiritual world, But they separated themselves when they appeared on earth. Ekatmanav Abhibhuvivara Deha Vedam Katala. They took 2 bodies, 2 forms in Krishna Lila in the 10th canto. Dutitabalitam Nomi Radha Bhava Dutitabalitam. Okay, that's the end. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikriti Ladani Shakti Ekatmanav Abhibhuvivara Deha Vedam Katala Chaitanyakyam Pakatamadona Tadvayam Chaikyamaptam. Now, in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they have again united as one. You see? Radha Bhava Dujisabalitam. So with the mood and complexion of Radharani, Krishna has appeared as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it describes the glories of Radha, but also the relation with Lord Chaitanya. So that's one. So, okay. I'll skip the Sanskrit. Her gold complexion steals the pride of golden lotus tinged with red. Her fragrance mocks the scent of lotus bloom with saffron powder spread. Her skill in satisfying Sri Hari is perfect and complete. May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. Eternal, this is. Her wondrous silken garment shameless splendor rubies can display. She is a blooming garden where the bee of Krishna loves to play. She worships Surya every day, so she and Madhava can meet. May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. Eclipsed by Radha's tenderness, the fame of budding blossoms dims. The moon a lotus sandal paste and camphor serve her cooling limbs. When Krishna burns with love, desires her soothing touch dispels the heat. May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. Eternal. Then, though youthful goddesses adored by all adore the goddess Shri, she lacks Radha's beauty, youth, and every other quality. So when it comes to lovers' sports with Radha, no one can compete. May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. Within the rasa dancer singing and her joking are the best. She shines with countless traits divine like love and gorgeous form and dress. Among the famous gopis of Vrindavan, she's supremely sweet. May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. Eternal pastime, beauty, youth, and love for Krishna make her rich. The loving gopis tremble just to see her love at highest pitch. Her meditation on Shri Krishna's form and pastimes is complete. May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. Okay, we have to quit. Can we finish it? Maybe after the kirtan. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.